that when they tested it in the laboratory, they couldn't even tell the difference between their own manufactured product and the fake product. So that's the space of time it took for this organisation that was trading illegally with this fake product to get to that point. So basically what happened was this pharmaceutical manufacturer called in the police and said, we believe that it's an inside job. It has to be an inside job. They need to have the methods for production right. They need to have all the formulas. Everything has to be correct. Plus, they need access to our marketing documentation to be able to put this packaging together exactly in the way that we've designed it. So it's got to be someone inside the organisation. Now, this was quite interesting, and I had a direct involvement in this actual project, whereby one of the directors of this pharmaceutical company said, you don't have to look too far, because I already know who it is. I already know it's that guy in that department there, and that guy in that department there. And we said to him, well, how do you know that? Look, I've been suspecting these guys for a long, long time. I haven't got the evidence, and I need you to get the evidence. You don't need to do a company-wide search. We just need to do an audit on these two guys. So we went back to him and we said, okay, you might be right, but they might be working in collusion with other individuals that you're not aware of, and so we need to do a wider investigation. So lo and behold, we did a 5-day investigation, and we caught the guy pretty much straight away. And going back to some of the stuff that was mentioned earlier, you know, he was, again, a power user. He was a super user. He wasn't a very senior super user, but he had all the access rights to get into all these different departments. Now, first interesting thing was we could go back to this director and say, you know, these two guys, nothing to do with it. Okay? Yes, they do goof off a lot at work, and they do a lot of different things, but being involved in maliciously destroying your company and taking the company's data for their own profit or intellectual property for their own profit, these are not your guys. Okay? So, when we actually caught this guy, it was quite a simple thing, you know. This company had lots of internet filtering in place. They had lots of different email tracking and all this kind of stuff. But all this guy was doing, he just created an external FTP server, and he's just parking this stuff straight on it. Now that's something that we would all normally think about straight away. But as a super user, he knows how to circumvent. He knows exactly what security mechanisms are in place, and he knows exactly how to circumvent it. So he wasn't doing anything special. All he was doing was every day going to specific departments, i.e. the marketing department and research and development department. He knows where the dynamic files are being created every day by new research, and he's actually pulling that stuff out, zipping it up, and parking it on an FTP site. Now, we couldn't catch the guy that's picking it up, because he's the one that's making all the money. The guy that was actually putting that stuff on the FTP server probably wasn't making that much. But there's another example of how insiders have to be controlled, audited, before you can actually see what's going on. Another one. This one, you guys will like this one. London-based financial services company. This is a recent one too. Almost 50% of the employees were found circumventing blocked websites to access unauthorised modes of internet communication and file transfer. So here's an organisation governed by the FSA. Okay, they know exactly what the rules of the FSA are, and they have security mechanisms in place to block access to webmail, to various different internet chat sites, MSN Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, all that type of thing where they can transfer data in and out and conduct communications with the outside world without being tracked. Okay? Now, it was quite interesting that we found, and again, we went in to do a proactive assessment. It wasn't an investigation, it was a proactive assessment requested by the organisation just to see how effective their existing tools were. And we actually found a number of staff, like I said, almost 50%, going to this site called picklemonkey.com. Now, I'd never heard of this site. Half of my staff had never heard of this site. And we do this kind of stuff all the time. Why was half of their employees accessing this site to circumvent a whole bunch of things that was already blocked by the company? Well, we actually went in and we actually did an investigation and an audit to find out where did the first instance of this type of stuff actually happen, this pickle monkey stuff. So we actually could find that there was this one guy that actually did a search on Google. You know what his search was? How to get around blocked websites at work. That was it. What comes up? A whole bunch of different websites you can go to, software you can download to analyze what kind of proxy technology companies are using. You know, if you're using this product, that product, this product, that product, here's how you get around it. Pickle Monkey was one of those sites. Now what he's done is he's gone and told all his mates, hey, check this out. We can go to this site and we can get around all the blocked sites. So that spreads like wildfire. voila, everybody's back on Facebook, everyone's back on, everything that they shouldn't be doing, right? So, very, very important situation to be able to see why an audit and an assessment is extremely important before actually looking. I mean, there's so many companies out there that have already invested heavily in internal security products of various different shapes and sizes. Now, a lot of the time, we find out those products are very effective, but they're not configured properly to make the full use of those products. You're paying for them. You've bought them already. Use them properly. How do you know how to use them properly? Do a proper assessment. Find out what's going on. It's all about that audit process. It's all about understanding what the users are getting up to before we try to stop them from doing something that we really don't need to stop them doing in the first place. So that's another example. The final example, and this is one that is extremely sad, and I was personally involved in this one. And the three companies that we've mentioned previously are all very big organisations. So these incidents did affect them in some way, shape or form, but they didn't cripple the company. Here's an example where it actually crippled the company. Now, this is a guy who set up a business in Malaysia developing GPS maps. And he was one of the first to actually get started on developing this. He spent about $10 million US buying the technology and getting a team in place and getting him started to build the maps. At the very, very start of this, he's a very entrepreneurial guy. He went and negotiated a deal with one of the major car manufacturers in Malaysia, an exclusive deal to provide the maps exclusively to this car manufacturer. He closed the deal, signed on the dotted line, got a lot of immediate revenue coming in, even before he'd finished the map design. 2 weeks before the maps were released, one of their staff, a disgruntled member of staff, actually left the company and published this stuff on the internet. So not only did he lose his intellectual property, but he was also sued by this car manufacturer for breach of exclusivity. So that's looking at a couple of these, and I'm going to have to move along quite quickly here. But again, all of these could have been prevented by proper audit and control. But what does that actually mean? The important questions to answer here when we're talking about looking at tools, it's not, I mean, you can go outside that room there and you've got all the best providers of this specific types of internal security mechanisms. They're all there. They're all very good products. But how do we know which one is exactly right for us? You have to do the assessment. You have to understand what you've got and then determine what you need. So we need to balance restriction versus flexibility to maintain flexibility, and data protection versus staff privacy. We have to help staff understand that to actually determine what our unique requirements are. What is an internal security assessment? Well, it's two things. We're actually looking at an assessment of the people. What are they actually doing? Prioritising non-compliant activities in terms of illegal activities, data security breaches, and some productivity issues if we need to find them. Technology assessment, we need to look at what tools we have in place. Are they working? Are they requiring further configuration to cover off additional gaps that can be covered with the existing tools that we have? Very important. Then we look at the major gaps remaining. I'm going to finish off with this slide here. This is what we call the user behaviour quadrant. We came up with this, and this is a very simple way of explaining what everyone's been talking about today in terms of assessing the people and where do they fit. You have intentionally compliant and non-compliant users. These are people that understand the policy, either follow or breach the policy on purpose. And then you have unintentionally compliant and non-compliant users which just do things without knowing what they're doing. And you can see here the biggest chunk of the problem is with unintentionally non-compliant users. These are guys that don't realise they're non-compliant but creating risk all the time, as in the examples that I've given you. And in here, this is the common mistake that people think is, in this space we're talking about malicious users, people that are taking data and trying to sell it or something like that, but it's not that. These are people that, quite simply, avoid blocked websites, do things that they know they shouldn't do, even though they're not trying to defraud the company in any way, shape or form, and we need to be able to be aware of those people as well and shift them by rewarding the ones that do the right things, educating the ones that don't know what they're doing, reprimanding or removing the malicious ones to be able to get everyone to sit in the quadrant like that. This is the objective that we try to achieve. This is the objective that everyone should be trying to achieve because it is about people. It is about building security into the DNA by shifting everyone into that quadrant. And that's the end of my presentation.